I think I'm live, although I seem to have lost everyone now. I hope you can find me. I'm seeing if I can send a message to the original stream that wasn't working to make sure that that everyone can find it, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm not 100% sure how to do it. Hi Nicole, really lovely to see you. Thank you so much. It's my lazy hair day braids. I hope everyone can find it. For some reason the original stream that I had scheduled was not working. So I've started a new one. I'll need to change the description in a moment, but that is okay. So hopefully people can still find it. I will quickly post something here in the community. The stream I scheduled. So I've started a new one here, and I'll just quickly send a link. So hopefully everyone will find that. Don't know if I can share it. So bear with me 1 second, and then we will start doing some art together. So there we go. This is the link. You'll always see on days when it's really busy, because there was 20 people waiting. There was 20 people waiting for me, and it didn't work. You always see that happens on the days when it's busiest. Yeah, thank you, Sandy. I had to delete the other stream, and then I could start a new one because the other one just didn't work. I kept getting notifications that stream was not available, and I didn't really believe that. But I had to delete the whole previous stream. So sorry about that. I got it to work. I don't know how all this technical thing sometimes goes above my head a little bit. But let's do some sketchbooking. So I'm really glad that everyone's here. Thank you so much for joining in. Really lovely seeing everyone. What are we going to do? We're going to do some sketchbooking today, and you might have seen this on my email earlier. I am planning to do a sketchbook technique that I have used quite a bit in my community. Sort of a really loose, colorful way of sketchbooking, such as this one, or let me find a few other. This one, sort of messy pages. This was another example of it. Pages where I created really loose and free, and I really enjoyed it. I really loved creating these type of loose, colorful sketches. So that's what I'm planning to do today as well. Hi Joey, really lovely to see you as well. Always love seeing everyone. The reference photo, I've saved it to Pinterest. So let me quickly share that with you. And I think I can pin that message. Well, I don't know if I can. Maybe I can pin it later. Yeah, so the reference pictures are from Unsplash, but I've pinned them to Pinterest. And I decided to do another sort of landscape, so you can see the picture on screen already. I decided to do another landscape, but what I'm doing is using that photo for inspiration, but not necessarily going to copy it exactly. So a new page, my sketchbook. There we go. And I'm actually, let's see if this works on camera. I think I might have my page. Does this work? Let's see if I can make this a little bit higher. So that works quite well. I think I might have my page up right like this. So you can see the edges fall off a little bit, but if I keep moving it sort of up and down if I need to. That works quite well. But still the proportions are a little bit different than they are in the reference photo. And I am, as I said, I'm not looking to replicate that reference picture sort of exactly. I'm looking for, setting down that atmosphere, finding sort of a way to capture the emotion and the sort of mood of that picture, and not necessarily copying it exactly as it is. And what am I going to use today? I have my sketchbook here. This is a Seawhite of Brighton sketchbook. I really like it. It's very thick. It's got about 100 pages. So I have plenty of space in here to do lots of messy sketching, which is what I like about it. Sometimes you have really precious sketchbook with very few pages and very expensive paper, and I think that's a bit limiting sometimes. I like the fact that I can just go through my pages without worrying. I have some watercolors here. I have a bit of old gouache that I used earlier today that I might add in. Just a few of my messy palettes that I can use a bit as well. I have some crayons here, oil crayons. I have some pencils here. These are actually water-soluble pencils, but any type of pencil will work. And I have some pens here as well. So that's my main sort of set of materials. And I have 2 brushes here that I have ready. I can grab more. I really like this really super rough brush that I've had for a long time, as you can see. And this is a slightly nicer watercolor brush. I like using this for slightly rougher texture. You don't need these exact materials, just join in with whatever you have. This is all about just freeing up and having some fun, and not necessarily about using the perfect, exact materials as I am. Oh, I love that, Sandy. I've made my own sketchbooks a little bit. Yeah, that's something that I want to do more often. I love the idea of that, and I think it's something that I want to explore more as well. So the first thing that I am going to start with is adding a bit of water to my palette. So this is all about letting go of perfectionism today. So this is a good trick. I should have done it before I started chatting to everyone. Before you start drawing or start sketching, add a little bit of water to your palette, leave it there for a few minutes, and it reactivates the paint. And then by the time you're ready to start painting, your paint is nice and loose and all the colors are activated, and you can use it sort of straight away. There we go. I usually do it before I start my sketch, but I'm not sketching today. There we go. And I actually need... what else am I looking for? There we go. Ready to get started. So when you're ready to join in, how I like to start this is just to really loosely set up a bit of the colors that I see in the picture. And this is not about creating each of these houses perfectly, but just a general idea of what colors I like to use and what colors that sort of speak to me in the picture. And you can change things up a bit as well. So there we go. So I'm just picking up a little bit of paint here. I might start with a bit of a mix of orange. So you can see I'm not being too precious with my colors. I don't mind if my colors get mixed up a bit or if it's a little bit messy. So I might drop a bit more water on there. There we go. So I just use this sort of fairly large brush just to set up a bit of initial colors. So maybe a bit here. So when you feel ready. I like this orange color. I use it a lot. And you can see that I'm not using lots of water. I'm trying to keep this fairly dry so I can draw over it quick. I have a hair dryer here somewhere to dry in between, but I'm not really planning on using that. So, and I'm really looking to create a bit of texture there. Oh, I love the conversation that's going on in the chat as well. About how to make your own sketchbook. So if you're curious about that, make sure you check that out. So I will zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So you can see I'm trying to especially not too precise. I'm trying to really create something that is a bit texturized, because I'm seeing so many different shapes in there and different textures and different shapes. I'm trying to sort of keep that in my artwork. So maybe a bit of red. So, and then here in the foreground, I'm going to use maybe a bit more green for the rocks. So yeah, I'm just sort of making a bit of a plan, having some fun with this, not too serious. So I want a bit more color here. So this is sort of that rock here in the foreground. So you can see I'm looking at that picture and I'm following what I'm seeing, but not taking it too serious. Maybe I want a bit of blue in there. So the blue is like nice sort of earthy color for those darker rocks. Is anyone drawing along? I'm just curious to find out. I also know that people are joining in from lots of different places. I'm all the way from the US and Australia. I'm curious who is the furthest away from me today. And I think most of you found me after all the hustle of, trying to set up the stream and getting things to work. So I think everyone has been very patient, and I think everyone is here now by the looks of it, so that's absolutely fantastic. So maybe I want to use a little bit of this super bright, slightly thicker gouache. So this could be like the ocean. I'm just checking my stream to make sure you can see everything. Yep, there we go. So this is sort of for the bridges. So you can see I'm really color blocking things out. And I think for the sky, I'm going to use a bit of this pink color. I have some white here. So, and with a bit of red, I'm going to add a bit of pink to the sky. This is also a color that I really like recently. And if you're happy with something, why fight it? I think it works well. My camera should come back in a second. Sometimes it just turns off for a moment. The lens gets a bit warm, I think. So maybe I'm going to use this rough brush just to mix it up even a little bit more. All of this is drying really fast, so I can draw over it really quickly as soon as I'm ready. So maybe if I take a bit of, this is quite dry paint, I can use some sort of scratches here. See, it's really quite loose. So I like the idea of the water sort of carrying on here. This is a very hard brush. Maybe I want one that is slightly less rough. This one is also a bit harder than the other one, but not quite as hard as the, this is more of an oil painting brush. So there we go. I want a few pops of color still in there. So maybe around here, around the buildings, maybe a bit of red. So all these little roofs and areas. mix that up with a bit of purple, just a little bit more colorful than what I had so far, and then I'm ready to start adding in a bit more details. So yeah. See how it slowly is coming together in quite a messy way? Oh, lovely. I see a lot of people are painting along. That is absolutely fantastic. So, if you didn't know this, I host these sessions every week, and quite often I'm using sort of different techniques. I draw in ink, or sometimes I draw people or animals from reference. So I have a little bit of a browse on my channel to see what sort of type of sessions are that I do. But yeah, you can always join in. I try and do every Thursday. Sometimes I have to cancel one or change it around if things come up. But generally speaking, I try and carry on every week. Because I know that not everyone knew this. So, and these sessions are slightly less interactive than the sessions that I do with my community, of course. That are on Zoom, and they're a little bit slower paced and people have time to ask questions and things like that. But still, I love seeing people in the chat. I just find it much more motivating to create a video for YouTube if I know that there's people watching, if that makes sense. If I do a session I pre-recorded, I don't know, there's just something about knowing that people are watching that I find a lot of fun, and that really motivates me to paint. So, quick sip of tea, and I'm going to let this settle for a moment. So, it's quite a good time to sort of see what's happening. Is there any colors that I'm missing? I know it's a bit muddy, that's also okay. I have really super bright crayons here that I can add to make things a bit more colorful. I think this area here is a bit too white still, isn't it? I know it's quite light in the sky as well. So shall I add just a little bit more of this white sort of pinkish tone? Maybe if I make it a slightly different tone. That is quite bright. There we go. It's going to be a slightly moody sky, I think, with all this orange. There we go. I think I'm quite happy with that. I'll mix this up a bit. I can always add more paint if I want to as well. There we go. How's everyone getting on with this part of the drawing? Good. I hope it's got a relaxing way of drawing. The good thing about this is that anyone can join in. You really don't need to be good at drawing or sketching to join in with this, which I think is one of the reasons why I love it so much. There's a lot of types of drawing where you have to make a really perfect sketch first, but this is a much more loose sort of way of approaching a sketch. And I think the fact that you can do the color first and then start adding more details is something that, I love that. It sort of suddenly teaches people that they can make a drawing or an illustration without, being perfect at sketching, because those are sort of two different skills almost. So some of the picture is still a bit wet. I have some water here. I have some water here. A lot of it is still a bit wet, but most areas here that is still a little bit wet. A lot of areas are already dry, especially the areas I did earlier. Also, I don't mind if things are a bit wet. I recently cleaned all my crayons. They were all really messy. I have a new box here somewhere, but I decided to use these today. And so I'm just making sure you can see everything. Oh, hi Sam, really lovely to see you here. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to hear that you enjoy it. I think I'm going to start with the building, so let me zoom in a bit. So, I very often get feedback from people where they say that they find my classes really calm. And I think that is quite interesting because I have always quite a high pace, I think. I go through each drawing really fast and yeah, I think I have quite a high pace style. This crayon is a little bit dirty, that's okay. So I'm going to start adding in a little bit of extra texture here, just making sure you can see it. So I'm looking at the texture that I'm seeing in these buildings, and I sort of have created little squares already. I don't know if you've noticed that. So I'm just going to start adding in a bit of extra. I like the orange feel, so I'm started to use this orange wax crayon. Actually, I might grab another set as well. I have a lot of art materials here, and I have two studios, so this one and another one. Soft pastels. Let's add this. So let's add some acrylic markers to it as well. I was looking for more oil pastels, but I think I've left them in my studio. So this is the problem. I have two studios, and sometimes I take art materials to the other studio, and then I need to remember what I have here and what I took with me. So I have these are acrylic paint markers, and they are very, very vibrant. But they work quite well. So this is watercolours that I've used so far, and sometimes it's quite nice just to add in, see, some extra vibrant little splashes. So this is anything goes in this type of art making we're doing today. If you suddenly think, oh, I have a pen and I want to see, I really like the color and I want to see if it works well together, feel free to grab that and just try it out. This is a sketchbook page where we really are free to add in any art material that we fancy. See? These colors, because it's acrylic paint, it's just a little bit more vibrant than the colors of the watercolors. So let's add some pink in here as well. So maybe this one is going to be a bit of a tower. If you cannot recognize this town at the end, that is absolutely fine. I'm looking for something that it brings me joy and not necessarily for the perfect copy of the picture today. So whilst this is drying, I'm just going over it with some oil pastels. I think when you do this type of sketchbooking, a lot of materials that are meant for children are actually quite good as well, because sometimes they are really pigmented and really, you've got these big sort of paint, it's almost a bit like glue sticks, but then with paint in it for kids, that are fantastic to draw with. So maybe some of this bright green. So actually, let's see if I can make this into rocks here. So see, I'm seeing a bit of a path here. Maybe I can add that in with some rocks. So these crayons, because they have such a different texture from the paint, it complements it really nicely. Sometimes having different textures really makes your life a bit easier. See, I'm now noticing some sort of rocks here. I'm looking for different textures, different vibes. Do you see it slowly coming together? If it needs to dry, that's absolutely fine, just let it dry. But sometimes when it's a little bit wet, you can draw over it already. If your picture, here, so for example, this was a bit wet, you can see that the crayon damages the paper a little bit. So if your paper is wet, it is a bit more fragile. So yeah, just use your own judgment. If it needs a little bit of drying time, just make sure you take that. So I'm just reading the comments, seeing what it says. I think that sounds fantastic, Nicole. I really love that you're creating your own sketchbooks. So I'm just slowly moving here. This is all dry. This is still a little bit wet where I added the extra paint. So I'm looking for texture mostly at the moment. Not too detailed. I'm also going for slightly different colors here in the foreground. So all these warm oranges and pinks, changing to some cooler tones here, just to sort of get the vibe of what we're seeing here. There's lots of people here on the rocks. Not sure if I'm adding those in yet. I might leave them out. I might add them in. I don't know yet. So there we go. And this is such, I love working this way. I also love drawing really sort of realistic animals with colored pencil and adding lots of fine details to things. It's also something that I really like. But what I think is great about this technique is that you can quite quickly sort of get an overview of where your page is going. And you slowly work from these really large shapes slowly into more and more detail. And I think it's also quite fast, right? So it gives you quite a quick way of adding in some quick marks onto your page. Our page fills up quite quickly, and in a way that's not too serious. If that makes sense. I like things that are not too serious. What do I want? Maybe a bit more dark blue. People always ask me what the art materials are. I have no idea what these crayons are. Here, look, this one still has a label on it. It's unreadable. I've had them for many years. It's a mix of different oil pastels. I think some are from quite a nice set, like maybe Rembrandt, or quite a nice set. And then there's also some really cheap ones there. So it's really a mix of different things. But I couldn't tell you. It's a bit of a surprise for me too. What do I want? I want a bit more here. So, should we add in a little bit of pencil? Wallpaper is a good idea. I have a few rolls of wallpaper here actually, and I thought about painting on it, but I've not done so yet. It's a good idea. I think it's quite a thick sort of material, isn't it? I'm going to add in a bit of pencil, so let's move this out of the way. There we go. Again, I have my really nice fancy pencil sets, but I decided to use this today. These are water soluble pencils, so if I add more water, I know that they will sort of blur out with the rest. And I'm just going over here and starting to add some little windows and chimneys. Here, I can lean my hands on here, it's dry. So maybe. Right, so I'm looking at the photo, not necessarily to copy each individual house, but I do want to see if I can find a few shapes in there that sort of catch my eye and that I think would fit in well. So see, there we go. And I'm putting quite a lot of pressure on my pencil, so I'm not being too delicate. Sometimes I am much more precious about the lines I put down. And if you have ever done any of my color pencil sort of courses that are really like a bit more into layering and how to use color pencil, and you'll know that I very often say start really light and slowly build it up. I'm going against my own advice here today, and I'm really usually going in quite dark. So this area here is sort of rocks in the photo, so I'm just going to see if I can add that back in. You see I've damaged the paper a little bit here, it's okay. There we go. So see, I'm slowly adding in more detail. So I'm just reading up on the comments. I think the wallpaper idea is also something that you could use for the outside, right? I think that might work quite well. So not necessarily to have as the inside paper, but more as a cover. I think that could work really nice. Yeah, if you want to experiment, there's lots of different materials that you can use. So I think there's a big difference between wanting to make arts that last, so to say, that you want to frame, for example, or for experimentation. There's a time and a place for everything. And I quite often work on quite cheap paper, even for my commissions, for example, because then I scan it in, edit it digitally. So something like this, for example, I would take a photo or scan it in. I have a scanner here, edit it digitally, and then it doesn't matter that the paper for the original work was not so nice. So the fact that it colors yellow in the long term, but sometimes it's okay. It doesn't really matter if you don't necessarily need to keep it. So I received an email maybe about 2 weeks ago from someone who applied for a job at Makings and Musings, and I thought it was so lovely. It's the first time that happened. I was quite excited about it. I just thought it was so sweet that someone, I don't know how old this person was, quite young, I think, based on their CV, but the fact that someone wrote me a letter and then sent their CV and their portfolio and they applied for a job, and I'm not hiring anyone, but I thought it was so sweet, so I'm going to see if I can help her a bit, sort of in her art career. Not necessarily, but just give some tips, or maybe there's some things I can do for her, but I think it's yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really fun to have someone apply to me, and also good for that person for putting themselves out there. Like if you're like 19 or 20, you want to become an artist, it's hard. It's not easy. So yeah, I love the fact that she put herself out there and sent out her CV, and because you never know, right, where it might lead. So I thought that was quite a fun, sort of exciting thing that happened to me. I remember when I was that age and I used to send out my CV to people, and yeah, different times. There we go. Let's have a look. Where are we going? So I'm quite happy with where it is going. It's starting to feel a little bit like a town, I think. I think the sea is a bit too choppy, maybe. Feels a bit stormy here in the foreground, but I also quite like that, so I'm not quite sure what to do with that. Maybe I can add some lighter colors to this. So I have a bit of light pink here, some grey, other grey, even though it's quite a light color, will make it look even more moody, and I have some white here. So let's start adding a little bit more to the ocean. Also, if your color choices are a little bit different from mine, that is absolutely fine. I'm not being led by the photo per se. I was a little bit to start with, but I'm slowly letting go of that reference picture more and more, and looking more at my picture and what feels right. So I could even take the reference photo away now and just work on what I'm seeing on my paper. No, I think so. Thank you, Sam. No, I think it's lovely, and I think like there's only so much help I can do, right? But like if she wanted some feedback on our portfolio or things, I don't know, like maybe some tips on where to find some first commissions, or I don't think she had any online presence yet, so maybe start with that. I can give some tips. So like I can't send her any work, but I'm very happy to to look at things like that. Yeah, I think that's really great, Nicole. You have to put yourself out, and I don't think age, I don't think it's ever too late, or you're ever too old to start making art, to start putting yourself out there. But I do think when you become a little bit older, then for me anyway, I am definitely more confident now than when I was 19. And if someone does turn you down, I don't take it as personal as I did in the beginning. And I would never want to turn someone down who applies for a job with me in a way that demotivates them, because that's just such a shame. I don't want to be that sort of gatekeeper, even though I'm not really, but I think it's great that people put themselves out there. That person might even be here today. If you're watching, I think it's fantastic. Let me know if you have any questions. And so, also, I started to be an artist after I had a career in law and in insurance. I'm sure most of you know this story. I've shared it quite a few times, sort of in the past, but yeah. Art was not my first career, and then by the time you sort of decide to change things and you have to start from scratch again, even like I had contacts and people within the insurance world, but that was not very helpful to me when I wanted to do art. So I had to start from scratch, and it's nice to have someone to ask questions to. I would have really liked it. Oh, that's fantastic. Well done on starting watercolor at 59. That's fantastic. I think any age, right, is a good age to start with things like that. There's quite a few famous painters as well who started painting like when they were in their 70s, and then still made a career out of it. Well done on selling paintings as well. I think there's two things about it. I don't think you have to sell your art to be an artist. There's absolutely no, because people can feel so much pressure sometimes. I feel like, I need to make a living of it before I can call myself an artist, or I need to sell things. So I don't think that's necessary. But then at the same time, if you do sell something, it's also such a confidence boost. And it's really nice if people appreciate the things that you make, and if you feel, because it is still like validation, right? So well done. I think it's fantastic that you sold work, and hopefully it will motivate you to do more of that going forward as well. So let's see where I'm at. I quite like the vibe here. You can see I've sort of been blending this white in with the rest, making a bit more of a mix. Changing the colors. I feel like the water is becoming a bit more even. I've just been putting lots of oil crayons over it, to be honest. This area here, I sort of kept white, but I can actually see there's quite a few boats here in the picture. So maybe I can do the same, make it into a little harbor. So it's a bit difficult in the fold. So, and I'm not going to make these boats super realistic. We just, so, there we go. Does anyone know where this is? I can probably find out. Let's see if I can, if it says here. Is that Italy? Oh yeah, here, Morola, Italy. It does look a bit Italian, doesn't it? Mediterranean. I could have probably guessed that. So, just adding some scratches here and there. Maybe some boats here as well. How's everyone getting on with their picture? Are you still adding to it, or do you start to reach a point where you think you might be finished? I love it. I love all the conversations going on and all the confidence, all the encouragement. I love them. I think the art world can be quite a cliquey place. I think in certain places, but I think within illustration and these online communities, there's just so much joy if someone succeeds and if someone sells something. And I think I've never met anything else than encouragement and joy if I shared something that went well. So this is a bit of like that path there. So with pencil you can make some sort of slightly more precise lines and some harsher lines, and the crayon is a bit more rough. And then with pencil you can suddenly add some stripes that really stand out. Maybe I want to add a bit of red in here, just to let some of that color come back. So these can be some plants. What do you guys reckon? Does it need a little bit more? Camera should come back. There we go. Do you want a bit of a closer look before I decide? The boxes look like houses. So let me zoom in and see. I don't know how much of a delay there is between what I'm doing here and what you're seeing. So I think what I do is sort of draw houses over the boxes, but not necessarily follow the squares exactly as I did when I first put them down. So you can see here with green, for this one for example, you can see that's a bit of a house shape, like a really rudimental house shape, but I didn't really follow the lines that I already had there. I sort of purposefully go outside of those lines. I think that's how I do it if I think about it. And then add in a few windows, add in a few horizontal lines, some vertical lines. And then slowly it starts to look more like houses. But you have to use your imagination a little bit, because it is definitely different from a house. Like from a really detailed sort of drawing. So that's I think how I do it, by creating those lines a little bit sort of separate, and also add in a few sort of maybe plants here on the rooftops or chimneys. So, I use a lot of sort of intuition when I do things like that, so I don't always know what it is exactly that I'm doing until I have to explain it, and then I think, oh, what is it exactly? So let's add a little bit more yellow to the sky. Yeah, I really like this texture. I think that has sort of dried up really nice. So I'm going to see if I can add in maybe a little bit of yellow. So a bit of a sunshine sort of strike. And then maybe a bit more dark at the foreground. This, I think I might want to add a little bit more there. I'm putting my pencils away. I can always get them back later. Maybe I'll add in a bit more of these blue markers, just here at the foreground for a bit more intense color. And I think then I might say that I'm finished. What time is it? It is 52. We can carry on a bit longer. It's okay if if yours is a bit more abstract, because this is all about finding, not necessarily finding your own style, because I think that is quite a loaded sort of thing sometimes. But it's definitely about just experimenting and having fun, and also trying some colors and some materials together. Maybe you find some things that work really well for you. Maybe there's a few things that you didn't like. That's also okay. That's also something you want to find out, right? It's that's all part of the sort of creative process, to try these things out and see what they do for you. It's also okay, like if you look at my painting and you think it's horrible, that's okay. I don't really mind it. It's just about having fun and about, playing. So I quite like it actually, personally, but it's okay. I'm not doing this for anyone else. I'm not making this to sell or to, I could share it on social media. Technically I'm sharing it now, but it's not, it's a very low pressure thing that I'm making here. So this color is actually very similar to that watercolor that I used. There's a bit of gouache in there, which is why this was a bit more vibrant. So I want a few of these colors here sort of coming back. I do quite like it sometimes when when a color comes back, even though I wanted this to be warmer and then this to be sort of cooler colors. I quite like a few sort of pops of color to come back in unexpected places, to tie things together a bit more. So maybe there could be a bit of this warm orange here. I think I'm sort of reaching the final of this artwork. I'm not adding in the people. I think it looks better without. There we go. That's just to the side for a moment. Let's have a look. I think I've zoomed out as far as I can. It looks like a magical place. Oh, I think it looks quite fun, doesn't it? I'd quite like to go on holiday here. So I agree with that. I am going to zoom in a few times just so we can have a close look at all these little scribbles. And I think that gives you a slightly different perspective, right? So if I remove the reference picture for a moment. So if you look at this, just sort of zooming in, it's such a scribbly, messy sort of drawing. And I think that's the fun of it. But then when you zoom out, you can sort of notice a little bit more how things are coming together. And remember, we didn't do any sketching. We just went straight with paint on the paper, straight in there. See here, my paper damaged a little bit, but it's okay. And it sort of works in the context of that drawing. I really like that sun that I added in the end. I actually think pink for the sky is a really nice color. I use that color quite a lot for the sky. Sometimes blue is a bit boring. So there we go. Does anyone have any last questions before I sort of round things up? About any of the materials that I used, or about anything else. The next sort of event that I'm hosting is one of my creative community events, which is on Sunday at 5 o'clock. And that's not a free event, that's a paid one. It's free for community members, and for everyone else it's £9. And we're going to do something a little bit similar. We're going to do a free sort of panel illustration, so with 3 sections. Let's see, I have another sketchbook here, a little bit like this. So let me find a little bit like this one, for example. But instead of, because here we went into a photo and we chose 3 locations of that photo that we zoomed in on. On Sunday we are going to do things around the color green, so 3 illustrations that are sort of tied together by the color. This was another one where we did 3 panels based on one photo. So it's similar to this, but then in a slightly different, slightly different vibe, where we have 3 sort of different settings but based on the same color. So that's what we're doing on Sunday. There's quite a lot of events coming up because I was away the beginning of the month, so I tied everything together now. I don't think there's any questions, is there? Well, if anything comes up, feel free to ask away. You can always find me here if you put a comment on YouTube, or if you contact me on Instagram or something. I'm always happy to help. So feel free to reach out, and I hope you enjoyed doing a bit of sketchbooking today. I really loved it. Thank you so much for all joining in and for being so lovely to each other as well, and for supporting one another. So thank you so much, and hope you have a really lovely rest of your Thursday. And we'll see you all soon, either here next week or in one of my paid sessions. Thank you. Oh, and also thank you so much to people who gave a donation. I know that quite a few people have given like a buy me a coffee donation, and I really appreciate it. That's very, very kind. So thank you so much for that as well. Cool. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.